What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Father Dynasty. I'm your holiday host, Chew, here on President's Day, recording from the manhole right there. And don't worry, be steering clear of politics on this President's Day, but looking forward to talk a little fatherhood and a little Dynasty fantasy football. And for those that do remember, we have Father Dynasty, the website, so www.fatherdynasty.com. And you can go there to listen to episodes, watch episodes. I've got some merch coming out in the near future that you'll be able to get from there. You can also leave a review. If you want to be a guest, let me know. You can either go through there or DM me through Instagram at Father Dynasty. And actually a cool feature, you can also leave a little bit archaic. It's called a voicemail, but it's basically you get to kind of leave a voice comment. And it can either be a criticism or a constructive thing that I can keep to myself, or maybe I can include it on the episode and give you a shout out. So please feel free to do that. Rate and review wherever you can on the website, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you're enjoying this content. Let me know what you think about it. On this week's episode, we've got a Fatherhood in 5, which is where I talk about my fatherhood journey in what I believe to be 5 minutes. And we've got a Dynasty update, which this week, much like in Parenthood, knowing the schedule was crucial. So let's go ahead and dive into the Fatherhood in 5. So here in Fatherhood in 5, this is I want to give an update on my experience as of most recently being a father in what I believe to be 5 minutes. And it could be 5 minutes based on how an adult perceives 5 minutes to be. It could be my son Finn's perception of 5 minutes, which is probably not even 5 seconds. And this week, the main thing we're going to be talking about is some sayings from my son. And the end result is basically me not saying this out loud, but thinking to myself, okay, so I guess I'm the asshole. So one of the things that he likes to say, which is, it's a pretty new one, and I have no idea where he got it from. Usually I can kind of key on either something that I said or my wife said, or maybe a teacher said, or something like that, something from a TV show maybe. This one, no idea. And it's kind of funny, but also condescending, like most of the things that he says. So this one is, if I ask him a question or just make a comment, it'll be, so insert the answer of whatever I said. And then he'll say, I already told you. And he'll also say it in a tone like he's annoyed that I asked him a question because he actually already told me. And this most recently came to light. We were flipping through a zoo book, just your classic zoo book. You go through, you got some desert animals, you have some Arctic animals, you got some jungle animals, I'm pretty sure. So nothing too crazy. And he knew some tricky ones. So this is more than just saying, this is a bear, this is a fish, this is whatever. He actually knew what a toucan was, what a rattlesnake was, what a walrus was, and what a narwhal was, whatever. Which I think narwhal, bye buddy, hope you find your dad. And I'll go ahead and put up a little graphic for those on YouTube who are looking for Mr. Narwhal from Elf. But as we were going through this, he, of course, knew a lot of the easy ones, knew a couple of those tough ones, like I said. And I pointed out a couple different ones that, one, he can't read, so it's more just what he recognizes and remembers the name of it. But ones that are, like, I think he knows the general term. So, like, for a Gila monster, he just knows it's a lizard, but he doesn't know it's specifically a Gila monster. Or for like an orangutan, he called it a koala. So that is more specific than a monkey, but he was wrong. I asked him for a Gila monster. I said, what is it? And he said, a lizard. I was like, yeah, but what type? No words. I was like, buddy, what type is it? Didn't say anything. And he said, after I repeated it one more time, he said, I don't know. And I was like, what's a Gila monster? And then he goes, yeah, Gila monster. I already told you. He's got a bit of a complex. And again, that's going with the theme of, so I guess I'm the asshole here. He's done that a couple more times in the last week or so, but that's probably the biggest, easiest example I can explain in terms of something that was within the last day or so. Another one, which would be funny in other contexts, but it doesn't make any sense when he says it. And it's, you don't say that. And it's not like, you don't say that, like Dale Doback from Step Brothers. It's, you don't say that. Got a little attitude to it, possibly crossed arms. And the confusing thing is he doesn't say it at a time, again, when it makes sense. So he'll say it it's not like he's being punished or anything like that. Like he'll be walking down the stairs. He's pretty good about holding the rail, but like to give him a little more advice. You know, like he loses focus. He's carrying down something in his arm, like a stuffed animal or something. So I let him know. I was like, all right, you know, be careful on the stairs, because if you lose focus, you're just going to tumble down the stairs. And I'd say something like that. Y'all be careful on the stairs. And he's just like, you don't say that. Which is very confusing, because he like lets go of the rail to cross his arms and give this whole angry little phrase of, you don't say that. I don't know if he got that from us. I'm trying to think. It may have been from us, now that I think about it, because it was probably he actually said a word he wasn't supposed to, and we told him not to say that. But again, context. It doesn't make any sense if I'm giving him a helpful tip of be careful on the stairs. But I guess, again, I am the asshole. And that is actually it for Finn's sayings of me being the asshole. I will also say that my son Finn is also the ultimate hangover punishment. Hangovers are certainly more debilitating getting older and older, but a toddler makes them 10 times worse. It would be certainly bad enough if he was just being loud and crying all the time. It does not help that he is more mobile than if he was, say, an infant, and can kind of specify what he wants. So the main thing is you definitely don't get to sleep in. That's a given. You maybe lay around, depends on kind of what setup you got. You know, we have our basement where we kind of blocked off. He has a bunch of toys down there. So you can maybe get down there, hope he doesn't ask you to play, and you just kind of bring him down there. He plays to himself, and then, you know, flip a show on, pass out on the couch. That could work. Not every time, but it could. But you certainly, even in that scenario, you don't get silence. And the bright lights, the loud noises, any of that kind of stuff, any sudden movements, really, like if you had to do some sort of athletic activity, like if Finn says, hey, run with me, or get on the trampoline, or something like that. But yeah, I mean, you know, back in my college days, my former cure was my buddy had a house kind of at the base of a hill, and there was a 7-Eleven about half a mile up a hill, a gentle incline, probably about a 45-degree. I have a associates in engineering, so that's probably accurate. You got that half-mile walk uphill to 7-Eleven, wasted. You get yourself a bag of Chex Mix and either a vitamin water Revive, which I think it probably was just, there's no vitamins in it that revives you. I think probably just seeing that it said Revive made me think that it kind of, you know, the placebo effect that it actually is reviving me. Or Triple X, which actually is a very good vitamin water. Again, don't know what vitamins are in that one specifically, but it just tastes really good. So you get those, and then you walk back downhill another half mile, and somehow that worked almost every time. There's still another time or two where it was still pretty wrecked, but I don't know if it was the mixture of like uphill and downhill walking combined with eating. I mean, I don't know the nutritional value of Chex Mix, but it's not great, I would imagine. And despite it being called vitamin water, I don't think 50 Cent created it and made it the best thing and, you know, doctor recommended drink. So whatever's in it worked for me. But yeah, nowadays, I mean, you wake up to a toddler that is very much awake, you know, ready to eat breakfast, probably tell you exactly what you need to make him, and you probably don't have it. And he's ready to run around, jump off couches, and yell, I mean, at the highest pitch, at a pitch you didn't even think could be reached, possibly emulating like an ambulance or a train. Again, something you don't want to hear at that time in the morning with that kind of a hangover. But at this day and age, I mean, no amount of Chex Mix or vitamin water fixes that. But I will say, neither as a college student nor as a parent has anyone ever regretted a night of drinking. And that's Fatherhood in 5. So in this week's Dynasty update, you know, we're kind of in that little bit of a limbo. I know since the NFL made their season a little bit longer and kind of switched around the schedule, there isn't really as much downtime from end of, you know, having the Super Bowl and the beginning of the season, which I guess includes, or I guess is preceded by the combine and all that kind of stuff. But much like in fatherhood and parenting, you need to know the schedule, you got to stick to it. And knowing the NFL schedule is certainly another important thing, whether you have a startup draft and you're picking everybody, whether it's just a rookie draft and you're just sticking with the rookies. You certainly need to know about the schedule of what's going on there. And as it is Dynasty, thinking about those off-season trades, thinking about, you know, those rookies coming out, Is it worth it? Do you want to move back? Do you want to move up? Do you want to kick it to next year and get a stud, someone you're comfortable with now? Seeing where some of these free agents land, who is tagged, who isn't tagged. As we've seen a lot of the coaching carousel settled by this point, what some of these offenses look like. And the first couple of dates are actually possibly the coolest part. We got the NFL Scouting Combine. So it starts on March 1st through March 7th. Still working on looking at some prospect tape now, and probably going to be discussing that either on the next episode or maybe in 2 weeks. But just a couple of things to think about in terms of maybe narratives for this upcoming rookie draft. Will there be any QBs that separate themselves to warrant the 101? Again, specifically speaking in Superflex, I know Malik Willis, he had a good Senior Bowl, and, is he a Lamar Jackson light, as my buddy Jake would like to say? Does Kenny Pickett's body of work, does that supersede the fact that he's basically the Van Wilder of college football? Maybe earn him the first or second first or second quarterback taken off the board. Another thing, looking at some of those positional players that ended up, at least in the last 2 years, see their draft stock soaring either in the NFL or they got drafted wherever they did in the NFL. But because of the NFL Scouting Combine, it helped have them be considered sleepers in Dynasty, and some of that paid off for some of these people. I know, just to name 2 running backs and 2 wide receivers. So Antonio Gibson out of Memphis ran a 4.39 40 at 6 foot, 228 pounds. Pretty incredible. And I know he's kind of hampered by shin injury in 2021, but I think still did pretty well. In 2021, we had Elijah Mitchell coming out of Louisiana State, and I kind of forgot about this part. Ran a 4.38 40, which is pretty impressive, and of course was complemented by a very good a good college resume, and was spoken about as being a pretty all-around back, and done pretty damn well for San Fran. And wide receivers, one I very specifically remembered, Chase Claypool out of Notre Dame. Him being a behemoth of a human being and still running a 4.42 for 40, absolutely insane. I remember him soaring up draft boards. And one that I'd actually drafted him in the rookie draft, but I forgot that it was specifically him having this good of a combine. So Denzel Mims out of Baylor. I remember he had a pretty good Senior Bowl, and I didn't realize he ran a 4.38 40 and kind of hit frame more of like a DJ Chark. I think he's like 6'3", like 205, 210 maybe. So just point a couple of those out in terms of, I didn't name all of the duds necessarily. There's plenty of those that are the athletic freaks at the combine that's the only spark of hope, is that's just going to get them on a team, and then they flounder. But those are a couple just of good examples that may slip a little bit in rookie drafts for Dynasty's sake, but some paid off. And to point this out, I don't necessarily believe in Mims anymore, but the other 3, definitely good players. The next date, which will be important for a couple of players specifically, March 8th is the deadline for teams to designate franchise or transition tags. I know that'll be important for some of those players that are kind of the best on the squad, still young. Maybe they're going to tag them just to be able to iron out a contract before the season begins. I'd be curious to see with some of these players. I know Devontae has been spoken about being one that's going to be tagged maybe, but overall, very curious just to see what's going to shake out for a lot of these guys. And the next couple of dates are March 14th to March 16th. So teams can contact and enter negotiations with unrestricted free agents, and their contracts would expire on the 16th. So if I remember correctly, this would be what they call the tampering period, which is a very confusing term for why you would call it that, because it sounds illegal. I guess it's not if you get caught tampering, but if it's within a legal tampering window, it's fine. It's very confusing. I don't get it at all. Basically meaning that all the deals, or most of the big ones at least, get ironed out before the season even begins. And then by the time it's the 16th, they just kind of sign on the dotted line and it's all over. And specifically just talking about some of the cap implications, I believe I spoke about it 2 episodes ago when I was talking to Tyler, specifically about the Saints, but just to kind of talk about, for salary cap, the top 5 and bottom 5 in terms of cap going into this next season. So we got the Dolphins at $62 million. Got a new coaching staff. Still got Tua. at least for now. Curious to see what's going to happen to the owner, but overall, just curious to see what they're going to draft and who they're going to sign. We got the Chargers at $58 million. So they got the quarterback. Still got to be a second year for the coach as well. A better O-line, but got to see what's going on with Mike Williams, and they definitely need to fix the D-line, which has nothing to do with fantasy, unless you have a IDP, that sort of thing. We got the Jaguars, $56 million. So they got a new veteran coach in Peterson. They got the quarterback. They got Robinson tore his Achilles, but you will get ETN back. But definitely need to improve that O-line and pretty much everything else. Bengals have $49 million, and they made it to the Super Bowl, so they did something right. But that O-line is horseshit, because if you have two teams break sack records in the playoffs, it says a lot about how good your defense is and how good your offense is and just how lucky you are to be able to get to the Super Bowl. But the Titans having, I think, a 9-sack game, and the Bengals still winning. Shout out to McPherson. He won them the game, and he's a stud. I mean, with how Burrow's first season ended with that injury, and he was just taking a beating. He took a beating this season too, and they really need to fix that O-line just to make sure that if he's their investment, he's their leader. They got to protect him. And the fifth one in terms of the top 5 for cap room for the upcoming NFL season is the Broncos at $39 million. And they have some pretty stout offensive weapons, not really in quarterback, but in all the weapons at least. Very good defense, and so going to get that quarterback could be the big difference. And I know that it's been spoken about. It could be Rodgers. I would have to think they'd go veteran. I really don't think they would go rookie, given what the team looks like now. But I'm very curious to see what Denver's going to do. So for the bottom 5 teams, and this is going from 28 to 32 in terms of who has the lowest or most negative amount. So we got the Rams at negative $13 million. And I know how they went about it in terms of trading a lot of those early picks to basically get whoever the hell they want. Could have blown up in their face, if they didn't make it to the Super Bowl and hadn't done this well this year, then it would have maybe been called a bust and a terrible idea and a terrible plan. But they did win the Super Bowl, and we're curious to see what's going to go on with a lot of the discussion about who they're going to be able to keep. Aaron Donald, and I've heard about a Stafford extension. Talking about McVay, maybe wanting to go do TV. I mean, the man's 37 years old, if I remember correctly. So I don't know why he wouldn't keep coaching, unless he wants to just go out on a high and come back in a decade and still be only 47 years old, which is still very young for a coach. I would imagine he's going to come back. I would like to think Donald will be able to convince some of those other guys like Von Miller and some of those other ones to still come back and kind of figure out how they can do that cap-wise. The Vikings at negative $15 million. You got a new coach. Is Cousins going to stay? I don't know. I think the most recent rumor, if it's a real thing, is that apparently the Panthers had reached out to the Vikings to talk about maybe a potential trade with Cousins. If I remember correctly, I thought his cap hit was like $44 million, and he will be a free agent after this year, if I remember correctly. Now, he got a 2-year extension a couple years back. But, I mean, the Vikings do have some good offensive weapons, and defense is all right. So, I mean, a new coach, new blood into the team, and maybe if they get rid of Cousins, I don't think Cousins is terrible by any means. I guess they just think he doesn't get them over the hump. I don't know if only a quarterback solves their problems, though. I think they have a couple other ones, but curious to see how they shake out with that. The Cowboys next at negative $21 million. And, I mean, I guess it's going to be them shedding money from offense, would be my guess. They, again, have a number of weapons on offense. Maybe have to restructure some of those deals. And for a team going into the season that I know Micah Parsons had an incredible year, but in their division, I think the thought was they could be good because the division's not that good. But wow, under Dan Quinn, incredible defense. If I remember correctly, I had them in fantasy, which I picked them up. That's obviously how they were thought about at the beginning of the year. And they finished as either the first or second, certainly a top 3 defense in fantasy, which is pretty incredible. I know a lot of it, it may not be the case next year, but hopefully they'd still be top 10. So very curious to see where those contracts are going to go from the Cowboys. Is it Amari Cooper going, as it's been rumored? I'm sure Gallup's going to sign elsewhere. So curious to see what's going to happen there. So we got the last two. These are the 2 lowest in terms of cap room, or most negative, if you will. And we got the Packers at negative $48 million. And I don't know what's going to happen with that. Is Aaron going to stay? Is Devontae going to stay? Some of those defensive players, who's going to be the large cap hit that they have to cut? Who's going to get restructured? I really don't know what's going to happen there. I assume Aaron's going to come back, and I would like to think if Aaron stays, then Devontae would want to stay. But I don't know what kind of restructuring they're going to have to do to be able to keep all that going. And it could be digging them in a Drew Brees-sized hole, as I'm going to mention here in a second, with the Saints, with negative $76 million. Absolutely insane. As Tyler mentioned on a previous episode, talking about the cap gymnastics that the Saints have been able to do each year to be able to kind of stay beneath the cap. It's true, but it kind of seems like a kick in the can down the road type of thing because, negative $76 million, you don't know who your quarterback is, or best case scenario, considering who's on the roster, or who could be, would be Jameis. But he's not even on the roster. If I remember correctly, he's an unrestricted free agent, and I know Taysom got that weird incentive-laden deal, which had to do with him being a quarterback or a tight end or different things like that. And, you hope Michael Thomas comes back. You hope the defense stays pretty solid. But with Tom Brady out of the NFL, but more specifically out of the division, the Panthers being terrible, and, you just hope that, and the Falcons being terrible also, had to add that one in there. You hope that they can figure it out, do some gymnastics with that cap, but I don't know how they do that without getting rid of some good players or kicking the can down the road still with some cap hits and then hitting on some rookies because they clearly don't have the money to invest on some good players like I think they'd want to. So as a parent, schedule is crucial, and crucial to keep all that information in mind in terms of the beginning of the Dynasty offseason and what that means in terms of deals that you may be looking for in the offseason before you get to the rookie draft. Rookies you may be trying to target and what you need to maybe trade up to or down to still get them. So that is the Dynasty update. And that wraps it up for another episode of Father Dynasty. And I want to thank you for stopping by, for listening, for watching, whatever medium you chose to enjoy this. And please feel free to stop by the website, fatherdynasty.com, and rate, review. And again, check out the website. Check out the podcast on Spotify, on YouTube, Apple Podcasts. And if you want to go to the website and possibly get another episode upcoming, you can go ahead and leave a voicemail, which if you go to the website, it's on the bottom right. And it's another little button you can click there. You can leave a question, leave a comment, leave a shout out, and I'd be glad to include it on an episode. To all those Dynasty daddies out there.